Today's lesson is on vaping and e-cigarettes. Vaping and e-cigarettes. So, true or false, some e-cigarettes are safe for youth? This one's an easy one, and you should definitely know that the answer is false. All e-cigarettes are unsafe for youth. In fact, they are even unsafe for adults. No matter what you call it, it's an e-cigarette. It's still a cigarette. So a bunch of different names that they go by. You can have your so-called tanks or mods, or even your rechargeable e-cigarettes, or even those disposable e-cigarettes. Okay, you probably heard them: e-cigs, vapes, Juul. Juul's one of the brands out there. And we'll talk a little more about them in this lesson. E-cigarettes come in many different shapes. E-cigarettes are devices that heat into an aerosol that the user inhales. Recent years, we've seen e-cigarettes that look like other things, including USB flash drives, pens, and other everyday items. Juul is one of the most common e-cigarettes shaped like a USB flash drive. True or false, most e-cigarettes contain nicotine? The answer is true. Most cigarettes do contain nicotine. Nicotine is still that same exact drug that you will find in a regular cigarette. Most e-cigarettes contain nicotine. Nicotine is very addictive. It's an addictive drug in regular cigarettes and other tobacco products. According to the CDC, the Center for Disease and Control, 99% of e-cigarettes contain nicotine. So don't be fooled by the flavors that they come out with. They pretty much all contain nicotine. So that's especially important for you to understand, because nicotine can actually harm your brain, which continues to develop until you are about 25 years of age. So what is nicotine? Nicotine is a toxic, colorless, or a yellowish, oily liquid that is the chief active constituent of tobacco. It acts as a stimulant in small doses, but in large doses it blocks the action of autonomic nerve and skeletal muscle cells. Nicotine is also used in insecticides. So imagine you're smoking this stuff, right? They use it as an insecticide. And nicotine is highly addictive. So trying to quit becomes very difficult. Nicotine comes in different types. So we've got here the pH scale. So we've got the so-called nicotine salts that are commonly found in the Juul product, and free base nicotine in typical cigarettes. So we're going to talk a little bit about the pH level, and for those who have some chemistry knowledge, understand that anything with a pH level less than 7 is considered acidic. Anything greater than 7 is considered alkaline or basic. So, with the pH of cigarettes, pH matters when it comes to how harsh nicotine is on your body, particularly your throat when you're inhaling, because that's what you're doing. You're inhaling the smoke or the vapor that it creates, and you're bringing it into your lungs. Most nicotine in cigarettes and e-cigarettes is what we call free-base nicotine, which means it's blue on the pH scale, so very basic. So the more blue on the scale, the more volatile or crazy it's going to be, which means that it will be harsher on your throat. Okay, so when we're talking about B, the basic, we are looking at in a more basic region of that pH scale. So, pH of e-cigarettes, manufacturers of Juul have found a way around that harshness factor. They added a chemical to the nicotine which causes it to become more red on the pH scale. So we're bringing it more on the acidic level. So by making it more red, it then becomes what we call a nicotine salt rather than a free-base nicotine. Nicotine salts are less harsh on your throat, right? So that becomes a little more appealing to someone who is inhaling, going, hey, I'm ingesting this e-cigarette. It's not really bad on my throat, but this is a big concern for young people because it allows the nicotine to be used more easily, which increases the likelihood of trying an e-cigarette and actually getting hooked. So if you're not getting that harshness in your throat, why are you going to want to stop using it? So that's what's the bad thing of trying to addict or trying to, get someone to take your product. So Juul contains a high amount of nicotine. All Juul e-cigarettes have a high level of nicotine. According to the manufacturer, a single pod contains as much nicotine as a pack of 20 regular cigarettes. So here is the pod in which these Juuls come in, and just that one pod is equivalent to an entire pack of 20 cigarettes. Juul contains a high amount of nicotine. All Juul e-cigarettes have a high level of nicotine, among the highest of e-cigarettes on the market. Juul's nicotine liquid refills are called pods, and a single pod, as we mentioned before, is equivalent to the 20 cigarettes in a pack. Some other brands have even more nicotine depending on the brand. So, true or false? Nicotine harms brain development. And the answer should be easy, that it is true. Nicotine does in fact harm brain development. Remember, most e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is highly addictive and can harm brain development. So please, as a youth or even as an adult, stay away from these products. So how does nicotine and e-cigarettes impact the brain? Well, the youth who use nicotine can harm the parts of the brain that control their attention, their learning, their mood, and their impulse control. So think about it. If it's going to greatly influence these parts and actually harm these parts of the brain, why are you doing it? Okay, so please try to stay away from these so-called e-cigarettes. So how does nicotine and e-cigarettes impact the brain? Well, right now, important growth is happening in each of your brains and will continue to happen right up until you're about 25 years old. So the brain is the last organ in the human body to fully develop. So imagine this, okay, to all my students out there who are in high school or elementary school or even in early post-secondary. Your brain is still developing. So why would you take something that is going to impede that development from occurring properly? So exposing your brain to nicotine while it's in an important developmental phase can cause addiction and actually harm your brain. Why? Well, think about it like this. Each time a new memory is created or a new skill is learned, stronger connections or synapses in your brain are built between these brain cells. Now, nicotine will change the way these connections are formed, which can harm parts of the brain that control attention and learning. Okay, so part of the reason why you want to stay away from this stuff. So although adults may use nicotine products to quit, for youth, any exposure to nicotine is unsafe. Understand that these products, these e-cigarettes, were typically intended for adults who are trying to quit nicotine and hopefully try to weed themselves out. But unfortunately, it is drawing a huge number of youth into vaping. So nicotine can lead to addiction, because addiction is a form of learning. Young people can get addicted more easily than adults. The nicotine in e-cigarettes and other tobacco products can also prime your brain for addiction to other drugs such as cocaine. So again, it just all of a sudden you're like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I enjoy the cigarette. I enjoy the high I get from the nicotine in an e-cigarette. Why don't we try something else? So as the ad here says, it's not like you can just go out and buy a new brain. So protect the one you have. So behavior risks. Youth who use e-cigarettes may be more likely to smoke regular cigarettes in the future. So some behavior risks. Another risk in using e-cigarettes is that many youth who use them are more likely to go on to smoke cigarettes even if they think they never will. So, the use of 2 or more tobacco products is common among middle and high school youth. Many young people who use e-cigarettes also smoke cigarettes. So, the best thing to do to protect your health is to not use any tobacco products at all. Do not use any tobacco products, no matter how it's delivered, whether it's an e-cigarette or a cigarette. Nicotine is harmful to your health. Okay, look, harmful. So don't do it. So, true or false, e-cigarettes create a harmless water vapor? And the answer is false. Yeah, we always assume that it's a water vapor or that it's harmless. That's what they want you to believe. But the tobacco industry prefers the term vapor because it implies it's harmless, which is in fact a lie. E-cigarettes create an aerosol, which is a mixture of particles in the air that can be harmful to your health. E-cigarettes make aerosol, not vapor. So the e-cigarette aerosol that users breathe from the device and exhale contain harmful and potential harmful substances. So we've got volatile organic compounds, we've got the nicotine, ultrafine particles that will go into your lungs, flavoring, that are chemicals that are linked to serious lung disease. There are other heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead that you're taking in, and as well as some other cancer-causing chemicals. E-cigarettes, besides the nicotine, okay, these aerosols, cancer-causing chemicals, right? As the heavy metals, as we talked about in the previous slide, the ultrafine particles that when you inhale go deep into your lungs. You can't just get rid of them that easily. Okay, so understand that even though e-cigarettes aerosol generally contain fewer harmful chemicals than a regular cigarette, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are safe. Okay, so this applies to both people using e-cigarettes as well as people who may be exposed to, yes, you can be exposed to secondhand aerosols if you are around an e-cigarette smoker. By the way, those flavoring in e-cigarettes also aren't necessarily safe. Your gut can handle a lot more than your lungs, and flavors in the e-liquids or pods may not be safe when inhaled and brought into your lungs. So it's one thing to bring in these chemicals in the form of foods, but it's another thing. Because remember, through your, you digest through your foods, and yes, you're putting in, some artificial flavoring, which are some chemicals out there. But let's face it, you are putting this stuff now in your lungs, and in your lungs, it has a very, very nasty effect. So the real cost of vaping. There's a video I'm going to share about that on this lesson. So e-cigarette poisoning calls related to e-cigarettes have skyrocketed. So liquid nicotine in e-cigarettes could be deadly. So notice here the trend over the years. Really, 2014, close to 4,000 poison control calls as a result from e-cigarettes and liquid nicotine. And if this isn't scary enough, even worse, children and adults have been poisoned by swallowing, breathing, or absorbing e-cigarette liquid through their skin or even their eyes. Just kind of, because those aerosols, right? Your eyes are open, they're exposed. All that can lead to some damaging effects. Okay. So some batteries, e-cigarette batteries, can be considered very defective, right? Don't really want to, these, self-explanatory. Notice here what some of the effects of exploding batteries in these e-cigarette cartridges. Okay, so you never know what's going to happen when you're using these products. So if the poisoning isn't going to scare you, hopefully the possibility of fires or explosions led by the defective e-cigarette batteries. Let's face it, all these things, they're not necessarily safe. Yeah, they say even our cell phone isn't, but the difference is you're bringing all of a sudden now all these harmful chemicals into your body. Right? So why take that chance? Most explosions happen when the e-cigarette batteries were being charged. Don't assume an e-cigarette device is considered safe. There is a surge in e-cigarette use amongst youth. Okay, so 78% increase amongst high school students. So since 2014, e-cigarettes have been the most commonly used tobacco product amongst youth. In Canada and the United States, youth are about 7 times more likely to use e-cigarettes than adults. Okay, and the reason for that is, well, pretty much these companies, they market to youth. E-cigarette ads reach nearly 4 in 5 U.S. middle and high school students. Right, so you walk into a convenience store and all of a sudden here, Juul sold here. So hey, so easy to kind of, or you think it's a little bit easy or not so easy. It shouldn't be so easy to get, but unfortunately, just like cigarettes, there are ways to get around it. So youth exposure to e-cigarette advertising is increasing. So youth exposure to e-cigarette advertising increasing. One of the main reasons is advertising. And these messages come in many different forms, whether it's store signs, television ads, movies, internet, social media ads, magazines with cool images, or newspapers. It's all around us. Okay, as we mentioned before, 4 in 5 middle and high school students and youth are exposed to these advertisements daily. True or false? The tobacco industry is in the e-cigarette game, and that is true. Big tobacco companies are moving to e-cigarettes to addict a new generation of users, including youth. So don't think that they're their own companies. Okay, the big tobacco companies are also joining in. Okay, so here we have it, the Cool cigarette, which are part of the Blue. Okay, so Cool sells Blue. Marlboros sell these Mark 10, and Camel sell these Views cigarettes. Tobacco giant Altria, maker of the Marlboro cigarette, paid $13 billion to get in on Juul. Okay, so understand that the tobacco companies are also trying to get their foot in the door with these e-cigarettes. Use of flavors is very prominent amongst youth because let's face it, who wouldn't want to take in these types of nicotine flavors? Okay, so understand that really just because we've got these sweetened flavors, it doesn't make it safe. They are bad, very bad. Live a life tobacco free. So there's apps that you can use if you are a smoker or you are a vapor. Try to quit. Download this app. There's an app here. This is quitting. Get help. Find some counseling. Ask a family member, a friend, someone you can trust to get help. Remember, you're not alone out there. Get some help if you're looking to quit because, like I said, nicotine is very addicting. So if you haven't started using tobacco, don't start. Okay, I don't care how appealing these e-cigarettes might be, they are bad. So most teens don't use e-cigarettes or other tobacco products. Okay, if you use e-cigarettes or other tobacco products, the sooner you quit, the better. More importantly, get help. Don't do it alone. Here's some things you can do that will make a big impact on your quit journey. Asking for help isn't weak, it's a smart move. Everybody, many people who've gotten success have gotten some help along the way. And if you feel comfortable, talk to a friend, an adult you trust about wanting to quit. It's normal for people to slip up when they're trying to quit. If you slip up, don't think of it as a failure. It just means you might want to try quitting in a different way. Be prepared. Being prepared increases your chances of quitting successfully. Have a plan, make a plan, stick to it, and keep trying to quit until you get it down. So, and avoid secondhand exposure. Okay, so if friends of yours are smoking or vaping around you, stay away from them. Just go do something else. Just don't hang around with them because you do not want to have some of the similar effects that an actual smoker gets just by being a secondhand user.
I hope you liked this video. If you did, do not be shy to hit that thumbs up button. And while you're clicking the thumbs up, click on that subscribe to stay tuned to my new videos. Thanks for watching.